The history of Botswana stretches back tens of thousands of years, with the San people among the first inhabitants. These skilled hunter-gatherers developed sophisticated knowledge of the Kalahari environment, creating sustainable ways of life that persisted for millennia. The Sedilo Hills contain over 4,500 rock paintings, some dating back 24,000 years, representing one of Africa's most significant archaeological sites. The San developed complex spiritual beliefs centered on the natural world, with their rock art depicting both everyday hunting scenes and mystical experiences. Their click languages and intricate social systems demonstrate remarkable cultural sophistication adapted to desert life. Around 2,000 years ago, Bantu-speaking peoples migrated into the area, bringing ironworking technology, agriculture, and cattle herding. These migrations fundamentally transformed the demographic and cultural landscape, with settlers establishing permanent villages and complex political systems. The interaction between San hunter-gatherers and Bantu agriculturalists created unique cultural syntheses that influenced the region's development. By the 14th century, various Tswana groups had established themselves as the dominant population. The Tswana people organized into major tribes including the Bakina, Bangwakits, Bakitla, Baralong, and Batawana, each led by a chief, Kagosi, and governed according to traditional laws emphasizing consensus building. The Bakwina kingdom was most significant, with Chief Sekolai, 1829 to 1892, becoming a formidable political leader who converted to Christianity under missionary David Livingstone's influence. The Kagatla, traditional court, served as both judicial body and community forum, creating a remarkably democratic system for its time. Cattle played a central role in Tswana society, serving as currency and symbols of wealth, influencing marriage customs and creating complex social hierarchies that would persist into the modern era. European contact began in the 1840s with missionary explorers. David Livingstone arrived in 1841, establishing a mission among the Bakawina and forming a relationship with Chief Sekolai. His writings introduced the outside world to the region's sophisticated political organization. The London Missionary Society established a network of missions that introduced Christianity, Western education, and medical care. These missions developed written forms of Tswana languages and educated future leaders who could navigate both traditional and Western systems. As the 19th century progressed, diamond discoveries at Kimberley, 1867, and gold on the Witwatersrand, 1886, intensified European interest in southern Africa. The Tswana chiefs faced pressure from Cecil Rhodes' British South Africa Company, German colonization in Southwest Africa, and Boer trekkers seeking new territories. Three prominent chiefs, three of the Bangwato, Sibele I of the Bakwina, and Bathone I of the Bangwachits, traveled to London in 1895 to petition for British protection. This diplomatic mission was largely successful, helping secure the Bechuanaland Protectorate under direct colonial office control on September 30, 1885, rather than allowing commercial exploitation by chartered companies. Under British protection, the Protectorate experienced relative stability but limited development. The colonial administration adopted indirect rule, preserving traditional Tswana political structures while overlaying British systems. The territory was divided into 8 tribal reserves, each governed by traditional chiefs under British oversight. Colonial rule brought significant challenges. The hut tax forced many Tswana men to seek wage employment in South African mines, creating labor migration patterns that disrupted traditional social structures. The colonial government invested little in infrastructure, education, or healthcare, leaving the territory economically dependent on Britain and South Africa. The independence movement began gaining momentum in the 1950s, characterized by political moderation rather than violent confrontation. Seretse Khama, grandson of Khama III and hereditary chief of the Bangwato, emerged as the leading figure. Oxford-educated and combining traditional legitimacy with modern political skills, he founded the Bechuanaland Democratic Party in 1962. Constitutional conferences in London, 1963-1965, established the framework for self-government. The Democratic Party won decisively in 1965 elections, capturing 28 of 31 legislative assembly seats. On September 30, 1966, Bechuanaland became independent Botswana with Seretse Khama as first president. Independence brought enormous challenges. Botswana was among the world's poorest countries, with an economy based on cattle and minimal infrastructure. President Khama's pragmatic leadership proved crucial, adopting realistic policies while building basic institutions and expanding education. The discovery of diamonds at Orapa in 1967 began transforming economic prospects, though significant revenues would take years to materialize. Meanwhile, the government focused on creating foundations for development while navigating regional challenges from Rhodesian UDI and apartheid. South Africa. The development of Botswana's diamond industry represents one of the most remarkable economic transformations in modern African history. The partnership between the government and De Beers, formalized through Botswana, a 50-50 joint venture, created a model for resource extraction that maximized benefits for the country while maintaining foreign investment and expertise. Unlike many resource-rich African countries, Botswana managed to avoid the resource curse through sound economic management and strong institutions. Diamond revenues were invested in infrastructure, education, healthcare, and economic diversification rather than being consumed by government spending or lost to corruption. The government established strict fiscal rules and transparent budgeting processes to ensure responsible resource management. The Orapa mine, which began production in 1971, was followed by Letlahaken 1977 and Jwaneng 1982. Jwaneng became the world's most valuable diamond mine by output, cementing Botswana's position as the world's largest diamond producer by value. These mines generated enormous revenues that funded the country's transformation from one of the world's poorest nations to an upper-middle-income country. Economic growth during the diamond boom years was extraordinary. GDP grew at an average rate of over 9% per year from 1970 to 1990, one of the highest sustained growth rates in world history. This growth enabled massive investments in infrastructure, with the government building roads, schools, hospitals, and communication networks across the country. The government also established the Pula Fund, later renamed the Botswana Public Officers Pension Fund, to save diamond revenues for future generations and provide a buffer against economic shocks. This prudent fiscal management helped Botswana maintain economic stability even during global downturns. Throughout the post-independence period, Botswana has maintained a remarkable record of political stability and democratic governance. The Botswana Democratic Party, BDP, dominated politics for over 5 decades, winning every general election from 1965 to 2019, but within a genuinely competitive multi-party system. The succession from Seretse Khama to Kwatkatamoljoni Masiri in 1980 established a precedent for peaceful transitions of power. Masiri, who served as president from 1980 to 1998, continued Khama's of pragmatic governance and economic development, while gradually liberalizing the political system and expanding civil liberties. Festus Mogae succeeded Masiri in 1998 and served until 2008, followed by Ian Khama, son of Seretse Khama, from 2008 to 2018. Each transition was constitutional and peaceful, contributing to Botswana's reputation as Africa's oldest continuous democracy. The traditional Kagatla system was adapted to modern governance, with regular public meetings allowing citizens to interact directly with government officials and voice concerns about policy. This blend of traditional and modern democratic practices helped maintain political legitimacy and popular participation in governance. However, the BDP's long dominance also created some democratic deficits. Opposition parties struggled to gain traction. Civil society organizations faced some restrictions, and there were periodic concerns about press freedom and government transparency. Botswana's economic success enabled remarkable improvements in social indicators. The government prioritized education, making primary education free and compulsory, and investing heavily in secondary and tertiary education. Literacy rates rose from around 30% at independence to over 85% by 2020. The University of Botswana, established in 1982, became a regional center of excellence. Healthcare improvements were equally dramatic. Life expectancy increased significantly, infant mortality declined, and the government established a network of clinics and hospitals across the country. The introduction of free healthcare for children and the elderly demonstrated the government's commitment to social welfare. However, Botswana also faced severe challenges, particularly the HIV/AIDS epidemic that emerged in the 1980s and reached crisis proportions in the 1990s. At its peak, Botswana had one of the world's highest HIV prevalence rates, with over 25% of adults infected, threatening to reverse decades of development progress. The government's response to HIV/AIDS became a model for other countries. In 2002, Botswana became the first African country to provide free antiretroviral treatment to all citizens who needed it. The MASA program, MASA means New Dawn in Tswana, partnered with international organizations and pharmaceutical companies to make treatment accessible and affordable, dramatically reducing mortality rates and new infections. The 2019 general election marked a historic turning point in Botswanan politics. The opposition Umbrella for Democratic Change, UDC, led by Duma Boko, made significant gains. And while the BDP retained power under Mokgweetsi Masisi, its majority was substantially reduced. This election demonstrated the maturation of Botswana's democracy and the emergence of genuine political competition, with younger voters increasingly demanding change and accountability. President Masisi, who took office in 2018, faced numerous challenges including economic diversification, youth unemployment exceeding 25%, and growing inequality. The COVID-19 pandemic further complicated these challenges, disrupting economic growth and highlighting the country as continued dependence on diamond revenues as global demand for luxury goods plummeted. Climate change poses long-term challenges for Botswana, with increasing temperatures and changing rainfall patterns threatening both agricultural production and wildlife populations. The government has invested in renewable energy projects and climate adaptation strategies, but the scale of the challenge requires sustained effort and international cooperation. The country also grapples with the need to balance conservation with development. Botswana hosts significant wildlife populations and tourism is an important economic sector, but there are ongoing tensions between conservation goals and the needs of rural communities. Botswana's history represents one of Africa's most successful post-independence stories. The country transformed itself from one of the world's poorest nations to a stable, democratic, middle-income country while maintaining its cultural identity and traditional values. Key factors in this success include visionary leadership, strong institutions, prudent economic management, respect for the rule of law, and the effective use of natural resources for national development. The integration of traditional governance systems with modern democratic institutions created a unique political culture that has proven remarkably resilient. However, Botswana faces significant challenges in the 21st century. Economic diversification away from diamonds remains incomplete. Unemployment is high, particularly among youth, and inequality has increased. Climate change threatens both the environment and the economy, while regional instability poses external challenges. The 2019 election results suggest that Botswanan democracy is evolving, with citizens demanding greater accountability and more responsive governance. The country's future will depend on its ability to maintain political stability while addressing economic and social challenges and adapting to a changing global environment. Botswana's experience offers valuable lessons for other developing countries about the possibilities and challenges of democratic governance, economic development, and nation-building in the modern world. Its story continues to unfold, with each new chapter building on the remarkable foundation established over more than 5 decades of independence.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more engaging historical content.